If you're in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? And welcome to episode 869 now of the Ron and Don Show. And we are back live in the Les Schwab studios.
What is up, Ron and Don Nation?
Hey, coming up on the Ron and Don Show, Matt off the mic is here. We're going to open up the mailbag. Excited for that. Also, we got to talk about pennies. Looks like we're getting rid of pennies. But do you know, I was listening to a podcast this morning. If you would have taken $114 like Warren Buffett did when he was 11 years old, almost all of it pennies, and invested it in the New York Stock Exchange, you're not going to believe what that money is worth today. And he didn't add one other penny. Yeah, we're going to talk about what we're going to do with all those pennies or the missing pennies. And also, we got to talk about made in America, because it seems like a lot of things supposedly are about to be made in America right now. But I thought things were already made in America, especially when I went to Mount Vernon, George Washington's place. But boy, did I find out different. Let's get to the mail.
The news as we see it.
All right, let's get to the news as we see it instead. And let's talk about, Ron, Made in America. There was this movement I remember. And I don't know if you remember this. I was graduating from high school. It's back in 85. And we were a Chevy truck family. Were you a Chevy truck family? Or because growing up in New Mexico, you were either a Chevy family or you were a Ford family. I think you were a Ford family. You drove a Ford, right?
No, my dad was a company car family. So every 2 years, a traveling salesman. So I remember he would get like a Cutlass Sierra.
Yeah.
And then 2 or 3 years later, he would get basically another Cutlass Sierra.
Yeah.
So we had a Cutlass or an Oldsmobile. Oldsmobile's not a Ford, right? Or Oldsmobile's an Oldsmobile. So we get Oldsmobiles and Cutlass and the 4-door sedan that you would see picture in your head of a traveling sales guy with a briefcase. That's what my dad
Well,
did.
that's very not New Mexico, and it's very not Midwest. Like in the Midwest, you pick Ford, you pick Chevy. All my cousins were Ford people. My cousin Rick worked at a Ford shop, so everybody in my family drove Fords. My dad's side of the family like Chevys. Then we got down to New Mexico, Ford, Chevy. And here's the thing. In 1985, what Chevy liked to say, and this was their motto between 85 and 93. I looked it up this morning. Remember this? When they were the heartbeat of America. Chevy trucks were the heartbeat of America. You'd watch the Super Bowl, you see a blimp go by, and it was always about the heartbeat of America. Chevy trucks, and that's where we talk about apple pie and Chevrolet, Chevy trucks. Back then, in 85, it was true that Chevy trucks were made here in America. Fast forward to now, where Chevy, when you ask Chevy, are trucks still made in America? And they say, yeah, Chevy trucks, of course, are made in America. What they don't tell you is that most of that truck is built in Central America. So they're not lying that it's built in America, but it's not built in the United States of America.
North America.
It's built in Central America. So that's what's happened with Chevy trucks. We've seen that happen with Boeing when they decided, you know what, we're not just going to build planes up in Everett, Washington, or down south in Kent and Auburn.
More like assemble planes.
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to buy parts from all over the world, and then we're going to assemble those either maybe in a place like Everett or even down south where it's cheaper to build planes. Initially, they didn't have to deal with unions, and then they said, we're going to take the central office, we're going to decentralize our business. Our head offices are going to be in Chicago. So we've seen that happen with Boeing. We've seen that happen with Chevy. And then last year, I've talked about this a little bit, and I went back and I looked at my pictures today. I was so excited to ride my bike in the fall months up to Mount Vernon, up to George's place. It was a place that was built by George Washington's father.
Not Mount Vernon, Washington, Mount Vernon on the East Coast.
Yeah, back in 1754 when George was 2, he started building this place. And George Washington would go on to own 5 different plantations. And they say, well, he didn't believe in slavery. The only way that those plantations worked is with slavery. And they'd say, well, is his wife that owned the slaves? George only had 114 slaves. And I'm like, That's still a lot of slaves. They say, yeah, but George let his slaves go. He didn't let his slaves go till he was dead and didn't need them anymore. What's really interesting is when you go to Mount Vernon, a couple things. Number one, just recently, they kind of rebuilt the slave quarters there, and they've started to tell the story of what it was like for African Americans to work on one of his plantations. You could only have Sunday afternoons off, and on Sunday afternoons, a lot of times you'd have to walk 5 or 6 miles to one of his other plantations if you want to go visit your daughter or your wife or your husband or your grandma, because they weren't really focused on keeping families together. They were just making sure they had enough people to work on each plantation. But on those plantations, guests would come, things were made, and things were made in America. But a lot of the things that were made in America were made by 4 million slaves, right? Even when you walk around Washington and you look at it, well, this is made in America. Well, it was made in America by African Americans that were forced to come here in order, in a lot of ways, to build America. So, which isn't news to a lot of us. This is what is crazy to me, though, is after I walked around Mount Vernon and went and got some breakfast and then walked into the gift shop, everything that I pulled out in the gift shop, like there was an American flag there. The American flag was made in China.
Right.
Everything there was a scent, like, and I don't know how they knew how George Washington smelled, but you can buy the scent of George Washington.
George Washington cologne.
There's a George Washington cologne, and it's made in Thailand. Everything there, and I took pictures of it, and they had all kinds of hats, and they had all types of things that celebrated America. And they were all made in Thailand. They were all made in China. And even the current president, who is now selling a lot of things like watches, right? Or he was selling some gold-plated tennis shoes. Those gold-plated tennis shoes, those watches that the current president is selling online, all that stuff is made overseas. So what say you, because I just got done reading this article and I sent it to you, where there's Americans now that are going out and saying, you know what, I'm going to do what Americans were trying to do back in 1985 when Don was graduating from high school, when Chevys were actually made in the United States of America. I want to be Chevy tough, or your Ford tough, or your GM. Someone's tough. But anyway, apple pie,
you're like a rock.
Chevrolet, like a rock, in America. It seems like, and these folks are finding out, trying to buy stuff made in the good old US of A with a global economy, it's very hard to do.
It's nearly impossible to do. And let's, I'm glad that you brought up cars, because let's think about this and rewind. Why did stuff start to go overseas? Why did America post-World War II and then into the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, why did stuff do that? And it's a fascinating story. So if you think of the automobile industry, because we bombed Japan, the Japanese started to rebuild their infrastructure, and they said, hey, do us a solid. We are going to send teams over because we need to start making stuff in Japan. Can we tour your automobile factories? Because we want to start to build industry. In the United States, because we were helping to build what we blew up, said, yes, come on over here and check out our automobile factories. So that's what the Japanese sent their best and brightest engineers, production designers in these teams. They came over and started touring American auto plants. And what they found, and this is super interesting, and this sort of explains a little bit about what happened in America. The motto in an American car factory was never stop the line. If the line was moving and we were making Ford trucks, never stop the line. It doesn't matter if there's a mistake happening in every single truck. You got to keep that line moving. And then what would happen is you would have 10,000 trucks in the holding lot, and they'd go, every one of these 10,000 trucks has the wrong differential cap. We'll fix it out in the yard. Mm-hmm. So you'd have a separate crew go out and correct all the mistakes after it was off the line, because you never stopped the line. The only person that could stop a line was like the plant supervisor. So Japan looked at that and they said, that's really inefficient, because now you'll have all these cars that were mistakes are made, and you're paying the guy to make it, and then you're paying a different guy in the union to fix it. So Japan went back and they said, how are we going to make cars? Toyota, Honda, all of these brands that back in the time that you mentioned, nobody in America would buy a Honda or a Toyota. So they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put red handles everywhere along our line in Toyota. Anybody can stop the line. If there's a mistake, if the lowest ranked worker in the factory, if they see a mistake being made that's going to affect every single car in the line, they pull the red handle, the line stops. So every second that factory stops, you're losing money, right?
Yeah.
They said, no, we're not, because we're going to fix that thing now. And we're going to bring in someone immediately, and we're going to praise that worker for stopping the line.
So you empowered the local worker.
You empower the worker. Yeah. There's no mistake. So they were off of the line of Toyota or the line of Honda. Every car was leaving the factory was going like right to a dealership, and they were virtually as good as they could possibly be.
Yeah.
And so what began to happen is the reliability of these American-made cars started to go down. Reliability of these cheaper, quote-unquote, Japanese cars started to go up until there was a tipping point to where people were like, hey, I'm a loyal American, but man, when I buy this Ford truck and then the paint peels off and I got to go back and get it repainted, and then the maintenance issues are falling apart, the gasket's wrong. There were scenarios where they'd put a wrong bumper on a car. It didn't fit right. It was just wrong parts, wrong paint. Everything was wrong, and we probably all remember these cars. Well, I've still seen them today. Where we see a Ford truck or a Chevy truck, and all the paint just peels off.
Yep.
Because no one could stop the line.
That's right.
And so these people started to embrace foreign products. Well, then America, and I'm weaving together a lot of stuff here, so forgive me, but America said we're going to do away with the pension. We don't want pensions anymore because these companies are traded publicly. The Ford, the GM, all these things said, hey, the stockholders were like, we want a better return on our stock. Why? Our biggest line item is pensions. Do away with the pension. And so then they said, well, let's do 401ks. So we're going to not do a pension anymore. All the new people, you get to choose what to invest in. And then we'll match a little bit of it every paycheck. Isn't that great? Well, it saved a tremendous amount of money. These pensions started to fade away. And so now they got rid of the pensions. What's the next way that you can save money? So you'd bring in a big consulting firm, and these are from stockholders. They're like, we want better returns, Ford. So they bring in McKinsey, or someone would come in and they look at it and they go, well, your biggest expense here is labor. Labor is your biggest. If we can figure out how to lower labor, then our share price is going to go up and Wall Street is going to make more money. So these people, the executives are like, well, how do we cut the labor costs down? And someone in the room raises their hand and they go, you know what? In Mexico, in Asia, in wherever, fill in the blank, we could cut labor costs by 90%.
Yeah.
So why don't we close this factory? We'll keep our HQ here and all the management team here. Let's close this factory down. We'll create a different factory. We will save 90%. Our stock price goes up. So what we incentivized in America was for the stock price to go up. It didn't matter about the laborers. Didn't matter about your middle class. And we chose that. So now, and that went across every industry.
I don't know if we chose that.
Well, our country chose that.
It sounds like...
But there was legislation that happened. There was politicians that got on board.
Sounds like Wall Street. And
Wall Street put the pressure on.
And powerful people.
And people caved.
Yeah.
And that process took 40 years.
Yeah.
All right. And so now, if you go out and you try to buy this coffee mug made in America, if you find someone that'll make this mug, it'll be $18 a mug.
Yeah.
If you go to Japan or to China and you buy this same coffee mug with the Ron and Don logo printed on it, it's $4 a mug.
Yeah. So should we be willing to pay more for an inferior product? Because I don't think that has ever worked, but it seems like that's the direction that they're trying to take us here.
Well, what do you do at the store? Like if you're at the store with your son, do you look at where it's made or do you look at the quality versus the price?
Well, the first thing I do when I get in there, if I'm going to be honest, is I go to Starbucks. And then the store that I go to, I really like the bathroom and the tissue in there. So I will go and loiter in the bathroom a little bit.
Why wouldn't
I
you?
like to wash my hands before I go shopping. And then I take a couple extra Kleenexes and I put those in my pocket for later because they're really soft and squishy, especially the new Safeway that's at the top of Queen Anne. And the good thing is you can go in there and it doesn't look like the doors aren't locked. You can actually go in there and go to the bathroom. And then I start doing my shopping. And then I always go to the fruit aisle and the vegetable aisle, and I pick vegetables and fruits that are in season.
I was thinking more about like you're going to school shopping and you have all
I
the...
thought you were asking me what I do when I go to the store.
No, like if you went to buy shoes and clothes and all this stuff, does your son go, I want the Made in America pants, or do they just find the pants they like and buy those pants, the cheapest pants you can, with the best quality?
We don't buy the cheapest pants that we can buy. We buy the pants that we think are the coolest.
Right.
So they're usually pants that don't look like my pants.
But
if I suggest a pair of pants, this is what I've learned to do with my son. I don't want him to cuss a lot, so I cuss a lot, right? I don't want him to use the F-bomb. I use the F-bomb as much as I can. When he cusses, he'll say, can I cuss? And I'm like, as long as it's appropriate. And then I've noticed, like with clothes I like to get him to wear, or a t-shirt, or maybe some shoes, I just wear the opposite or tell him that I think those are dumb, and then those are the ones he wants. So it's not whether it's made in America or not, it's whether dad thinks they're cool or not. And if dad thinks they're cool, he's not getting those.
But I know you're patriotic, and I know he's patriotic, but like the way people shop, 99% of people, you go in, you say, I need a pair of shoes, you try a couple pairs on, you go, I like the Nikes, I like the Hokas, I like the Sauconys, whatever you do, I like the Adidas, and you buy those shoes. Very few people then turn that label and go, oh, these are made in Indonesia,
right?
Or these were made in China, or like I have a pair of shoes on right now that are rip-offs of a more expensive pair that I have, and they were half the price. I know they're made in China.
Yeah.
I know it's probably stolen intellectual property, but they were on Amazon, they were half the price, and they work great.
Yeah.
So like it is this thing to where turning that ship around does not create the utopia I think that we think it does.
And then the question becomes, as we talked before, if you're going to be made in America, are you going to do that robotically? And if you're going to do that robotically, then you haven't created any jobs. And then if you're trying to get people to come do these jobs, the people that actually do those jobs, you're deporting them right now and you're sending them out of the country. And people, if you're listening to this, right, and you think that everyone should be deported, really take a look around your neighborhood next time you drive around and see who's mowing the lawn, see who's cleaning homes, see who's doing insulation work. Try to find one white person in America that does insulation work
or tar roofing
on a hot day in a place like, whether it's Seattle or Albuquerque, New Mexico. Try to find someone that's non-Hispanic that's getting up and doing a roofing job.
I did dig out a basement recently.
Or an insulation job.
When you were in high school, I could have hired you to dig that basement, and you would have been happy to do it and make some money. I could not hire you today to do a basement.
You could. I would do it for free. I like doing that stuff for free. I'm not a good example of that. But the point being, I think our focus is we are a global economy. The globe, we all kind of need each other, and now we're beginning to isolate ourselves because we want things made in America. And I'm telling you right now, if you want that iPhone, and we all have one that's made in America, if that phone is made in America, you now, instead of having $1,000 phone, that phone is going to cost you somewhere between $2,500 and $3,800.
And it'll break in 2 weeks.
More in a minute. Hey, you guys, what's going on? It's Ron and Don for our title sponsor, Les Schwab. I just bought some Vox wheels, Ron. I don't know if you ever heard of Vox wheels. They are so cool. In fact, I just put them on my camper van. And guess what? You guys can buy them too. In fact, now through July 5th, you can save $80 instantly. How quick is instantly? It's instant. That's pretty fast. On select sets of Vox wheels, exclusively and only at Les Schwab. They're known for their sleek designs, their old world craftsmanship. In fact, Vox wheels deliver stand up and stand out. Yeah, they look and they're long lasting. They have amazing, amazing performance. Whether you're giving your ride a fresh new look or you're swapping out old wheels like I did, don't forget Vox wheels. They're built to last and made to impress.
Yeah, this is a limited time event only at Les Schwab Tires, so don't miss your chance to save while supplies last. Just another way you get more from less. Stop by your neighborhood Les Schwab or learn more at leschwab.com. That's leschwab.com. Limited time offer while supplies last. See leschwab.com sale for details.
If you find yourself dreaming about a new home, go from just a dream to the dream team. Schedule your time at ronanddonsitdown.com.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. If you need us, don't forget, just reach out, ronanddonsitdown.com, and we can sit down with you today. I wish I would have understood investing at my son's age. He's 15 now. I wish I would have understood a lot of things about real estate.
Oh my God, it's so true.
I wish there was an internet and I could watch Warren Buffett and just do exactly what Warren did.
I remember buying a pair of speakers at the Bon Marché. Remember the Bon Marché had their summer sale or whatever it used to be called. And I was early 22 or something. I was like, you know what? I love music. I deserve these Bose speakers and a 5 CD changer. So I went in there and got the book because I had a credit card, Bon Marché credit card.
Send you one,
and
yeah.
I was like, why wouldn't I get this stereo?
Right, it's
I
free.
deserve it.
It's free.
I'm a music appreciator.
Yeah.
I was paying on that friggin' stereo for the entire decade of my 20s. I could not pay off. This stereo ended up costing me like $11,000 because I just couldn't get past the minimums every month.
Yeah, you know
'Cause I
what?
had no concept of how this worked.
I did the same thing, and I want to say Monet watch, but it's what
Movado. You bought a Movado.
I had a Movado watch. Same thing. 10 years.
Oh my God.
Paying off that Movado. I got a credit card right when I was 18. I was like, wow.
No one had ever explained
They're
to
giving
me
me free stuff. Yeah.
about the credit card, why I should do it, why I shouldn't do it, what kind of thing I should buy, what an interest rate was. I had no idea.
Someone told you how to get it, and you had to build your credit, and boy, that didn't work either. Because I was always late paying the Movado, and you
I missed the
couldn't.
Bon Marché.
Yeah, what was incredible is whoever I bought that watch from went bankrupt, and then someone bought the debt, and then somebody else bought the debt. And I thought when somebody else bought the debt, I didn't owe it anymore. So I quit paying, and then I found out that'll take your credit score right down to about a 60. So so that's not a good idea. It seems like the United States penny is going away.
This is interesting.
I heard Warren Buffett talk about what he used to do with pennies, and when he was 11 years old, he made his first investment. And he made his first investment in a stock on Wall Street. And the interesting thing is, he said, if you were to take that $114, which is mostly pennies today, and you were to, well, he said, even if you look back and look what I did with that $114, he says, if I trace that back to how old I am now, he goes, even if I didn't make any other investment.
What did he buy? Just the whole stock market?
He didn't say, but just he invested the 114. And then as the dividends increased, he just continued to invest it. He said at his age now, and he's retiring, I guess, right?
Like 91 or something like that.
He said that $114 today would be worth over $400,000. So my son did a little pressure wash this weekend, and he made about $200. So we took that $200 and we invested that in a Fidelity account that we have for him. It is pretty crazy. One of the best things that we can do for our kids is understand at their age, life is leverage and your age is leverage. And our ages, we don't have as much leverage anymore, right? In fact, when we invest in real estate, a lot of times at our age, we're investing for cash flow and appreciation. But for younger people that are investing who have a W-2 job or a 1099 job, you can invest. You can be more aggressive and just invest for appreciation and to pay that debt service down and not worry about cash flow, and then get cash flow later from that real estate when the debt is basically gone and you own that property free and clear. That check, instead of going to the bank, is now going to you every month because you are ultimately the bank in that scenario, in that situation. But anyway, I was thinking about the power of the penny and the power of collecting pennies. And I remember when I was young, going out, collecting cans, for instance, and being able to turn that into pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters.
And buy candy. Yeah. Or go to the arcade. That's what I would do.
Yeah, but it's kind of the way that you learned about money. And there's something in me it makes me a little sad. I wonder what's going to happen to charities, because a lot of times when you stand at a cash register now and there's a couple pennies on the line, they'd ask you if you'd like to take those pennies and give those to a charity.
Ronald McDonald House does that.
Yeah, and I
if
always
you
say
paid in cash.
Yeah, and you start adding up those pennies, it's a lot of money. What pisses me off though is then Safeway shows up and they do a big check and it says Safeway and say, look at all this money we just gave the Ronald McDonald House. No, you didn't. That was me standing at the register at
doing my own
Safeway,
checkout,
buying your overpriced groceries, and now you're getting the credit. It should say Don O'Neill on that check gave 3 cents on October 3rd is what it should say. Right?
So this will be super interesting because what they're going to do, they're stopping the production of new pennies. So as these pennies get back to a central bank, they're going to start removing them from circulation. There are trillions of pennies, though. And so what will happen is, like, you go to the store, and each retailer gets to choose their methodology here. You go to the store, you give them the pennies. They rack up their pennies in the little sleeves, take them to the bank. The bank then will remove these pennies, give them back to the feds. I don't know if they're melting this metal down or what happens to the raw metal, but once they get taken out of circulation, they're gone. And now the store eventually will have to basically put into their register, if it's between 0 cents and 5 cents, they will round either down to the 0 or up to the 5. Unless you're paying with a credit card or you're paying with an app on your phone, then it can still be to the penny. But otherwise, it's going to jump to the 5 cent mark. And they said, as long as these pennies are around, they should still be honored. So 10 years from now, if you find a bucket of pennies at your grandma's house, you could still take those to the bank and cash them in as legal tender. But once the bank gets them, they are gone pecan.
Yeah. Here's the problem. A penny for your thoughts, that works. A crypto coin for your thoughts, not so much. See you in a moment.
Ron and Don, from radio to real estate. When you're ready to grab a cup of coffee and sit down with the guys, go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. I think it's time to, here we go. We did this at the top of the show. It's my fault. We had a misfire. Now it's time to check the mailbag.
He's mad off the mic, behind the scene, don't you know? It's mailbag time on the Ron and Don Show. It's Matt off the mic, behind the scene.
All right, Matt is here, Matt off the mic, the producer of the Ron and Don Show. Don't forget, you can watch us on YouTube now. And we goddamn ridiculous if you want to check us out. Who's our first question for this afternoon, Matt? What do you got?
Let's take a look here.
Yeah.
All right, the first one we have is...
I like the way that sounds.
Well, I got to find the letter. Here it is. All right. So the first one is from Susie in Snohomish.
Yes.
And she, very short question, just asks, Ron, is a tiny house a good investment? Now, we know you have a tiny house, right?
I do. I have a tiny house up on the Skycomish River. Is it a good investment?
A good real estate investment, I guess, right? Because we talk about real estate.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you want to do with it. So I have this tiny house, and many people ask, "Oh, you Airbnb it, and can I rent it out, or I want to go up there?" And,
is that right?
And
yeah.
You know, you should put that on the platform. And it's like, well, I don't because it's very. Tiny houses are interesting in that all the systems are not like a house. Mm-hmm. So in other words, the power, the main power thing for my tiny house is outside of the tiny house.
Right.
The water system and the septic system are outside the tiny house. So it's, in a lot of ways, it's like an RV in that sense. Except I have a little bit more robust on that. So there would be, for the average person, and I think I learned this from you, it doesn't matter how many times I put in the welcome instructions. Hey, you're on a water tank. If you take a 12-minute shower, you're going to run out of water. I bet I would go through 1.5 guests before I get an emergency call. We're out of water.
You will.
It's like, I told you, it's not on city water,
right.
And they're just going to blow through all the water.
Yeah.
And there's 100 of those. Where's the switch for the cafe lights? Well, that's on the side of the city. Like, how do I get the fire pit? It's like,
yeah.
It's sort of like glamping in my scenario. And so if it was on city water, city sewer, and I had that completely dialed in, then yes, you could use it as an income generating property. For me, it's appreciated because of the sweat equity I put in.
Yeah, you've done a lot of work up there.
And so a good investment in that regard of like, if and when I want to sell it, I'll make a profit. So that's a good investment. Is it an income generator week in and week out? No, but that's not the purpose of that property. The purpose of the property is for me to be able to escape from the city, not drive too far, to get out in nature. I like to host people. You've been up there. Your son's been up there. I was just out. I did an anniversary dinner with my girlfriend at Canlis, and I saw, Mark Canlis, and he's a fly fisherman. I was like, dude, you can use my tiny house. I would love for someone like that, where if you gave them the instructions, they would follow them.
Yeah.
And you could say, go fly fishing. Here's sort of the rule book. And I our friend Ollie and Emmy went up there once because he wanted to do a meditation retreat.
Oh, cool.
And so it's like they'll follow the instructions. I did get some notes from Emmy because she's an architect.
Yeah.
And she had some things about the spice rack and stuff that I had to remedy.
That's great.
And so I took her notes and completed all those tasks.
I like that.
But yeah, it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah. I run about 9 Airbnbs and then numerous rentals on top of that are midterm, long-term rentals. And I have to say, on the Airbnbs, you're called constantly. We now have books that we leave in the Airbnbs that people can reference. So when they call and I'm like, well, did you read the letter I sent you, or did you read the book? Read everything in the book. And then
how do I get on the Wi-Fi?
Well, I always make sure that the Wi-Fi is at the end of the book, and I always make sure the door code now is at the end of the letter because it makes people go through and actually read the letter. When I put the Wi-Fi code and I put the code to the door at the beginning of the letter, nobody read the rest of the letter.
Right.
So that's worked a lot better. And at the same time, I would say 3 to 5 times a week, I'm at one of the properties doing something.
Sometimes you buy something for your enjoyment.
Yeah, like yesterday, I was knee deep in a bathtub because we had a water leak at a property. So it's easier for me to grab my tools, run over there, and go, wow.
Well, let me just wrap this up for this question. That's the kind of thing, like when we do a Ronadon sit down,
to put a wrap, it's difficult for you to go fix something up on the Sky Comish, which you would be willing to do.
Right.
It's not like you can jump in your car and do that. All my properties are within 5 minutes of where I live.
So this type of question we will get a lot. Is that a good is Queen Anne a good neighborhood? Well, a lot of that depends on what your goal is. How much cash do you have? What's your time horizon? What's your goal with this property? What's your skill set? Are you going to live there? Are you going to rent it? And so when we do like a Ronadon sit down, and we did this a couple of weeks ago, someone was like, I want to buy an investment property. And you go, okay. And once you get into what their story is, that may or may not be the solution. Yeah. And that may or may not be the thing that they want to do. And like, for instance, buying something for your own personal use. I just went out with a former client that's like, hey, I joined a golf club. Now I want to live closer to the golf club. And it's like, okay, well, like that's your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so it's not an investment property anymore.
Yep.
That's a lifestyle property where this is what he wants to do. He wants to play golf multiple times a week. He's paying dues at the membership for the club. And so is that a good investment in air quotes? Not necessarily, but is it good for his life and mental health? Yes.
Then it is a good investment. Yeah. All right, Matt, thanks for that. We will have more mail coming up in episode 870. Let's close it out with the new
Matt on the Mic song.
Matt on the Mic.
He's mad off the mic, behind the scene, don't you know? It's mailbag time on the Ron and Don show. It's mad off the mic, behind the scene, don't you know?
You gotta wait for it to drop. It has to drop.
On the Ron and Don show. It's mad off the mic.
Did you do that with AI?
I did that with AI. That's cool.
It's mad off the mic.
That's cool.
All right, you guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ron and Don Show. I want to thank Matt off the mic for That's our first mailbag segment since,
Yeah.
since we're out on YouTube now. So don't forget, you can listen to the show on the podcast player of your choice, or you can watch the show.
Yeah, we're on Spotify video, and you can switch back and forth between video and audio. We're on the YouTubes. You just go to Ron and Don Radio is the channel. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. That'll let you know that you're going to see stuff. And then I've been working on doing our Ron and Don toddler 15-second bites, also with AI, and so you can see those mostly on Facebook
You've
and Instagram.
seen that, some of the baby podcast stuff. Ron just put one up on his page. I put it up on my page. You guys should check it out. I'm Don O'Neill on Facebook. Just give me a follow. Also on Instagram, and Ron is Ron Upshaw.
And if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, let's do a sit down. RonandDonSitDown.com. Why? Because we sell the sound.
Yeah. Hey, I want to thank Matt. I want to thank Grace. I want to thank my son, the station voice. Of course, Charlie the dog. I was going to bring him today, but I think it's a little hot in here.
It is hot in her.
Yeah. Anyway, he's Ron. I'm Don. Thanks for listening, you guys. Thanks for allowing us to be your friends, your partners, your real estate agents, your neighbors, and a couple badasses. We appreciate that. I might add. Is that too much? A couple badasses. Anyway, till next time, you keep your head up and your shoulders back, and don't forget, you've been listening to the Ron and Don Show all night on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Well, that's it. Show's over. We'll see you next time on the Ron and Don Radio Network.